Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts,
Archlector George,
and Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Best Served Cold, Joe's first standalone and the next First Law entry after the original trilogy. On this episode, we review Science and Magic and The Safest Place in the World. So, let's get started. Want to think, I don't know where that terrible Russian accent came from. It's just that was weird at the end there. It just came out. Thank you, everybody, for your continued support. Usually we shout out specific people. Anybody want to spout? No, we don't usually shout out specific people. Do you guys want to shout out anybody? Really?
I shout out ourselves. Who would have ever thought we would have lasted this long? I sure didn't.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's all we got.
Okay, that's all you got.
Self-aggrandizement. Yep.
That's it.
I mean, we're coming up to a milestone here, guys. We're coming up to 30,000 total views.
Nice. Love that. That's great. That doesn't happen without you, the people. Really do appreciate that. You guys have been great. We should come clean. There has been a little bit of a snafu, you would say, with international shipping. To the person that won the book, The Great Change and Other Lies, I believe what was the name? Narrow, something like that.
Yeah.
Narrow.
The shipping did not work out in our favor. The address was slightly wrong, and it ended up having to get returned to shipper.
Right. So we are waiting for the book to be returned to us. Right now, it exists in the
void.
The void.
It's in the system somewhere.
So as soon as we're actually going to take some steps to try to track it, to find it, where it is, when it'll get back to us, so then we can try to resend it to you, Narrow. And if for some reason it just gets lost in the void, we don't. I mean, unfortunately.
Okay. No, I'll say it, Jeffrey.
Okay. All right.
I bought a copy for myself when I bought it, so I will send you mine.
Very magnanimous.
Such
Very
a
good of you, Harrison.
Grand sacrifice. What a mensch.
How much did the giveaway have cost us in the end? Then was it like 140?
I don't want to talk about
160 with all of the shipping.
He doesn't want to talk about it. This is why you use mules. All right, you use mules.
I should have just hand delivered it. It would have been cheaper for me to fucking fly over there.
Oh my god, you could have done that? What?
You fly to fucking Germany and here goes, but just fuck off over you.
That would have been really funny.
Such personalized service from the Circle of the World podcast. Those fellas, they're nice. Oh, that's great. So that's the recent update we got for you right now. But yeah, just wanted to let you know, we want to be very open and honest about that. It's not like we lied and say, hey, take part in this little giveaway, and then turns out nothing gets given away. No. We attempted to give this away. We gave it away. It's just most likely either going to be returned to us or stolen away at this point.
It'll be a very, very lucky postal worker.
Right. Bastard. So yeah. So just wanted to keep you all appraised of that situation. Alrighty. So let's move on to our first chapter read through, folks. And this is Science and Magic. And we start off from the perspective of our foreign person in Styria, our northerner, Shivers, Call Shivers, and the group here. It's it's Monza, Shivers, Friendly, Morveer, and Day, and they are riding horses, except for Morveer and Day. They're in a cart, and they are traveling towards Westport, another grand city in Styria. And Shivers is he's a little perturbed over what happened last chapter, right?
Yeah.
He hears a laugh coming from the cart with Morveer and Day. And since, from what he is experiencing right now with Monza and Friendly, these two people aren't the most cheery kind of folk here. So he hears this laughter, and it draws him towards them. So he kind of, reins up next to him, has even a smile on his face, like, "Hey guys, what you laughing at?" and then Day kind of leans in towards him and just basically says, "Well, I was just wondering, so like when you fell off your chair like a turtle that tipped over, like did you like shit yourself?" and Morveer chimes in with, "Well, I was of the opinion that you probably did, but doubted that we could have even smelled it because of your clothes." And at this point, Shivers, he still has a smile on his face, but it's like a shit-eating grin at this point. It's just very like, these are the hookers.
They're so fucking rude, aren't they? There's no need to be rude to Shivers like that.
There's really no need. Like, this is unnecessary.
It's over the top. It's like they're like the epitome of people like, don't you have something better to do? Like, what are you accomplishing? Why?
Yeah, they're just sitting there on their cart, like tittering to themselves, like.
They're Joe's. They're the first law versions of Mean Girls. I imagine Morveer telling like, I don't know, Monza, like, stop trying to make fetch happen, Monza. It's just not a thing.
That's exactly what's happening. Yes.
I don't even know what the first law equivalent of fetch would be in this case. Cheese trap. That's the equivalent right there, but that's way down the line from a character we don't speak of. Anyway, so at this point, he kind of is like, he was reminded of basically when he was paralyzed. And Shivers is not a cultured man just yet. He's not a man of many, of widely varied experiences. So when he thought back to that moment, his question was to them, it was, "What did you do to me? Was it sorcery?" and that was probably the wrong thing to say to the Mean Girls here, because they just bust out, even laugh, like she just laughs out even like more, and then Morveer goes, "Oh, then I thought he would have been an uninspiring traveling companion. Sorcery, I swear." I just reading the italicized words of Morveer, I just can only imagine how they actually jump out at you when you're listening on the audiobook, right?
It jumps out. Yeah, he's well, it's funny, right? It actually doesn't jump out as much because the italicized, like how you read that, it's basically the way he speaks the whole time.
It's hilarious.
So it doesn't really jump out at all, but it just makes it's like you put so much effort into making it more of a sneer if you can. Like, it's difficult to describe.
That's difficult. That's crazy. It's more of a sneer. So basically, they just rag on him a little bit more, and Shivers goes, "All right, I get it. I'm fucking dumb. All right, whatever. What did you do? What really was it?" And so then they answer that, it's science. And Shivers doesn't understand what science is. He goes, "Is that another word for magic?"
I mean, kind of. He's not wrong.
In a way. And then Morveer answers him with like this. He says, "No, it most decidedly is not." And then he goes on this whole fucking long-winded explanation of what science is, and to the point where Shivers, in his internal dialogue, he's struggling to keep up because of the words in Styrian that he's, remember, this is not his native language, Styrian, and he's, Morveer's using unnecessarily multisyllabled words, right? And he goes, "This motherfucker is saying a lot of words when he could be saying something really simple, right? Why is he making it so much difficult?"
And Morphe does that all the time. It's like he's got a fucking thesaurus somewhere, and he's like, "Right, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna pick the most complicated word that I possibly can." He's that guy,
He's the guy that would quote Shakespeare when no one asked for it, right?
That's the mother, no.
Dost me. I don't even know what the me lady thinks. The lady protests too much. Whatever. Doth me thinks the lady
protests too much.
Doth protest too much. That's it. The lady, but yeah, that's it. And then he goes right. And then he gets sarcastic. He's like, he says that, I guess I'm the dumbest person in the entire circle of the world. Name drop. And it's wonder how I can even hold my own shit in. And then they kind of joke about him some more, like the thought has occurred. But Shivers, he counters by saying that magic does exist, that he's seen it for himself. He's seen a woman call up a mist. This is a callback to when Kaurib in the second book and before they're hanged mystified the Union Army. And
mystified.
and then and then
it took me a minute. I am ashamed to say, but I'm proud of you, Jeffrey. That was a good one.
Thank you. And then Morveer, being the dick that he is, he goes, "Really? And how is it different than regular mist? Magic colored, green, orange?" And Shivers can't really say anything else, but he goes, "The usual color." And so Morveer, being the dick he is, says, "Oh, so a woman called, and then there came mist. Wondrous indeed." And it's just, oh my god. And so Shivers is trying to explain to him, like, no, like, you don't understand. Like, I saw a guy that was covered in tattoos, and that side that was covered in tattoos couldn't be harmed. I stabbed him myself, and then there was no wound. And they just went, "Oh, really?"
The way he does it in the audiobook as well, it's like, ooh.
Scary.
No wound. And then there was no wound.
Oh man, so they're ragging on him. It's unfortunate. It is so unfortunate. And then
it's so funny because we know it's true. Like, it hadn't Morveer's just been a fucking idiot.
Mm-hmm. You know what Morveer is doing right now? He's being an even more insufferable Neil deGrasse Tyson. And I like Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he can be pretty fucking insufferable. And so, Shivers says, basically, I know what I've seen. And then, but Morveer says, no, you saw what you thought you saw, but there's no magic, especially not here in Styria, baby. And then, then Morveer kind of, Shivers doesn't really have much to say about that, but then Morveer.
I will say, like, the whole situation with this talking right here, like, obviously Morveer's being a complete ass, so's Day, and they're just like dicking on what he says. However, we have to think about the context of time, and these Northmen are not just known by Morveer as savages, but by like everybody as savages. Mm-hmm. And this is why, they see these things, and we as the audience know that they're real. Mm-hmm. And we know that Morveer's an ass, but in reality, we'd probably be laughing too. We'd be like, "What the fuck you going on about?" What if somebody right now it's the same thing as when somebody talks about, like, Bigfoot or UFOs. Like, you may have an inkling in the back of your mind that maybe it is true, but you're not going to say that. You're just going to be like, "Oh yeah, you weirdo. Okay there, buddy." Oh. And so in the social context, I don't think they're being that mean, to be honest. But in terms of bringing it up at all, yeah, they're being mean.
No, I hear what you're saying. First of all, it is the position of the Circle of the World podcast that Sasquatch is real. Second of all, second of all, you're right, and here's why. Because especially Morveer and Day, their entire work, right, the profession is steeped in science.
Yep. And
they haven't encountered anything magical as far as they know, right? Baez, there's no magi in Styria as far as we know. Baez hasn't gone over there. Everything has been pretty much just political intrigue, backstabbing, those kind of machinations, or war, right? But nothing where sorcery would look like it could have taken place. And anything that could have been like had a sorcerous tinge or magical tinge to it would have occurred hundreds of years ago, at least in their minds. So you're right, Harrison. You are right. But they are still being dicks. They're being dicks.
Yes.
You can. They're just one of some of those people that like everything can just be explained away. Imagine if you asked them about the House of the Maker, they'd be like, "Oh, it's just like a big building.
It's probably got like a really strong steel beam in the middle. That's how
yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
it's
it's like the
the
Adeptus.
ancestors had like this really fucking good like technology or whatever, and they managed to make a building that couldn't be marked by anything. And you can't actually go in there. And...
Like the pyramids.
Honestly, like, if somebody like Morvier would probably be like, yeah, it's truly a remarkable structure. However, I believe that I could create a substance that could, in fact, damage it. But why would I waste my time on such petty matters?
yeah.
He's a troll. He's essentially a troll. So he asks Shivers, why did you bless us with your presence here in Styria? And Shivers basically tells him that he's, here to be a better man, even though it seems, like Shivers is having a tough time actually being a better man so far. And then Morvier can't help himself but, make another crack about that. Like, what does he say? He says, I hardly think that would prove too difficult starting from where you are. And so Shivers does this cool thing where he basically, because he still has some pride in him, he spoke to him in Northern and basically called him a short little shit. And he says, you'll never be tall, and seeing across a crowded room will always be a dream to you, which I took some personal offense, being a vertically challenged man myself. But you know what, Shivers? I understand. Do you, boo-boo? And then he hits him with the one-liner when Morvier asks him, what was that? What is that language? And then Shivers says, you're the fucking scientist. You work it out. And even Day started laughing on that one. That was a good one, buddy. Like that.
Solid burn. Solid burn.
Burn. Ooh, burn. And then after that, though, Shivers kind of drops back. And he tries to strike up a conversation with Friendly. Because Friendly's the closest thing to a soldier that he can kind of identify with, right? Because he's thinking about his friends back in the north, and he misses them, and they were all soldiers. They fought in battles together, all that jazz. And he goes up to Friendly, says, "Hey, how's it going?" Friendly doesn't say jack shit, and he's asking, "Hey, were you a soldier?" Friendly just shakes his head. But you fought in battles? Shakes his head again. Shivers like, Jesus Christ, I'm fucking getting nothing here. So, Shivers tells him, about the battles he's been a part of. Then he says that, the last one, the battle in the high places, he talks about how he fought for 7 days with the dog man. And then Friendly goes, 7 days? 7 days? we can feel his heart on from the pages of this book. And then he asked him about where he learned how to fight, and Friendly tells him about the prison he was in, which was called Safety. Shivers was a little confused by the name. He goes, "Wait, why would they call?" No, don't worry. It's because everybody else is safe once you're in there. Anyway, tells him about how there's a structure, there's routines, there's order in Safety, and basically we see that Friendly misses it because Friendly just he looks at the sky. What does he say? He says, out here the sky's too high, every man does what he pleases when he likes, and there are no right numbers for anything. And then he just looks at Westport in the distance and he goes, fucking chaos. And this one Shivers is just like, why did I even ask this guy anything?
I
should have known he's crazy.
I find it quite interesting that there is actually like a large institutional sort of prison in this universe, because I say, like, going back 400, 500 years, that wasn't really a thing. Like, they didn't really put people in prison for a crime. You just kind of, like, hang them. And then that's it. Like, you catch them, they did a crime, you hang them, that's it. That's kind of over. So the fact that there is, like, a big building where they just put everybody that's done a crime is it's quite interesting.
I guess that's kind of part of the whole aspect of it, right? Is that... there's this one place. Monza seemed to have whenever he mentioned, he was in Safety with me. Like, she knew what Safety was, and I don't want to get too much into spoilers here, but knowing what we know about Safety, where it's at, and everything like that, it makes sense that there is just this one place that happens to have it's an anomaly, and it obviously. I don't think it's an anomaly, and I like that though. Like, I like it whenever something that is unique. But it's not over the top to where it's like, oh yeah, there's all these prisons around Styria. There seems to be just Safety, as far as we can tell. That's an actual institutionalized prison, and I think it adds a lot of flavor to the world building, without having to go into a whole explanation of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like our closest, I guess, our real world reference or mirror of that would be like Alcatraz, right? You
Yeah.
know, safety's
Like a
Alcatraz,
super prison.
super prison, dun dun dun. Yeah. So there was a bit of a break. Right before actually we get to the break, I actually want to mention that Shivers. We see the difference in custom, right? We see that like Shivers had mentioned that in the North, if you commit a crime, you either pay for it to make it right. You pay gold or whatever, some kind of what's the word
You
for it?
pay the fee for your crime. Yeah.
Yeah, hold on. I'm trying to.
He calls it guild,
In
which is
species.
actually
Species is like how you would call like gold or silver, right? Yeah, I think so. Actually.
I've never heard that, but that's interesting, Jeff.
I think so. I could be wrong. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right. I got that from Deadwood. So anyway, so so Shivers says that either you pay or you pay with your intestines, and they hang you or cut the bloody cross on you. But he noted that to lock a man in a hole for a period of time, that seems like a crime in of itself, which could, if we were politically motivated, the three of us, we could talk about, the
Are we not? Let's get.
I don't know. Anyway, but notice, I guess, like different cultures had different, obviously, like perspectives on the on how one pays for a crime, which is pretty cool. Like, so the North is pretty much just get it over with, done. And for Styrian, at least the Styrian people, it's more you pay over time via we lock you the fuck away. So just wanted to note that real quick. But other than that, if you guys have nothing to add to that, we can move on.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, good.
So they get to the city walls finally, and so is everybody else. A bunch of people are trying to get into Westport. They're trying to either flee the chaos or mayhem of what happened with the League of Eight, or they're fleeing Duke Orso's army, I would say, his armies. And so there's a guard, verifying or just checking with people, like a border guard, right? Well, give me your passport. Do you have any drugs on you? All right. So Morveer goes, I'll do the talking here. Because he's on the cart anyway. I guess it makes sense. And so the guard just asks him his name. I just want to talk about this because this is the origin here, folks, where he goes, my name is Revrom. And he's laughing at his own joke.
It's so stupid, man.
If
you think you'd be able to come up with something slightly cleverer than that,
Folks, if you haven't figured it out yet, he basically just reversed his name. So instead of Castor Morveer, it's Rotsack Revrom.
What a brilliant idea! Who would have thought? No one's gonna catch on. But the best part. Oh no, we'll get to the best part later about that part. I won't spoil it now. No, it's excellent. Yeah, he's well known. Let's just say that.
It's really well known. And then he goes off. He starts with this whole fucking introduction. A humble merchant from Puranti, and he talks. And the guy has no time for it. He goes, "What is your business?" And then he fucking goes, "Murder." And then there's uncomfortable signs like, what? And then he goes, I hope to make a veritable killing on the sale of these wines. I hope to make a killing in your city. And then everybody goes, oh my God. And then another guard looks at Shivers, goes, I don't know if we want his kind in our city, though. Hey, calm down there. All right, Border Patrol. Very racist. And but Morveer he goes, oh, don't worry about him. This one's practically a retard. Jesus Christ. Just, oh my God. Just straight up call Shivers dumb as fuck. Oh my God.
Oh, this is for me is like one of the funniest bits of the
series.
It is.
It really is. And then he goes, I keep him on out of sentiment more than anything. And he has this thing. He has this rapport with Day where he goes, what am I, Day? And she goes, sentimental. He goes, oh, I am nothing. I'm not sentimental. and then at this point, the guard's like, just go, okay, get the fuck out of here. Just get in. Come on. Let's go. Yeah, they got so many people, they gotta keep it moving. And then, they start riding or trotting through the city of Westport. And the city of Westport, to Shiver's eye, is even more unique than Talon's was, right, folks?
Indeed, very special.
Yeah, do you guys want to talk about it?
Well, we're going to talk about it as a certain segment.
Right.
But to kind of get the basic idea, and they kind of touch base on this. Monza kind of exposés on this, which is fairly rare for Joe to like go into detail on such things, which is why we'll talk about it later. But Westport is a city of many cultures, and what I think is unique about it too is that it's only like 100 years ago that a whole bunch of Cantic people came to Westport, settled there, and along with who was already there, and kind of created a mixed culture. And now the Union is in charge of the city, so now their cultures mix in as well. And it's definitely a unique place compared to a lot of the places in the Circle of the World. It's like it's a whole.
The city's a true melting pot, I would say.
It's New York, baby.
New York City. BX. All right. Anyway. That's very true, Harrison. Good observation. George, did you want to point anything out about Westport?
I like the fact that Monza explains that even though slavery is illegal in the Union, like no one's going to be in a rush to free anybody that's enslaved there.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah, because this is Shiver's introduction to slavery. He doesn't know what it is. He sees a lady leading a man with a collar on his fucking neck, and he goes,
like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, he's like, "What the fuck's that about? Is that a kink?" And then she's like, "Nah, this is slavery, baby." And what? He's befuddled by that. But yeah, so that's crazy. So in between those, those moments that we all just mentioned, Shivers is noticing, there's a huge temple in Westport, which is where the Cantics pray. He sees the slavers or the slaves. He sees a bunch of beggars. He sees a bunch. He said that when you entered the city, it was no less packed than it would be in a battle, and not that much less terrifying. Monza also mentions that it tends to be it's specifically to Northerners that grow their hair long. It seems like.
Yes.
That she made it a point to mention that because I imagine from that we can infer that Union men, Styrian men, and Gurkish men, even the Old Empire, New Empire, they kind of tend to keep their hair short. Because
I think didn't Malachus Quai had long hair? Apart from that,
I think he did, but he's too sickly to look like a threatening Northman.
That's true.
And if you ask Harrison, Malachus Quai shouldn't have existed.
This is true. He should not have.
Harrison would have loved to have been the guy to been like, Malachus who? Malachus what? Sick, you say. Anyway, so yeah. So then, Shivers. So Shivers at some point mentions Adjua because he talked about as you said, George, Monza said that the Union doesn't allow anyone to make somebody a slave, but they're not actually trying to free anybody anyway either. And so Shivers took some umbrage with that, and he had mentioned Adjua in passing, and Monza goes, "Whoa, you've been to Adjua? What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I went there, fought a battle." And so she asked him about the House of the Maker and everything, and she says that she's always wanted to go. And he asked her, "What's stopping you?" And he goes, she goes, I got 6 men to kill. Oh, right. That's what we're here to do. Right. So anyway, they get to the location. They're at the house. They're at a house that Monza has procured for them. Either she's always owned it, she recently owned it, or just recently rented it, whatever. She took it for its location, and we'll find out about its location in a moment. And so we learn as they settle into this building here with like 20 rooms. It's grand space, at least, not grand furniture, I assume. And we find out that Morveer is going to take point on this, mission for Malthus, to kill Malthus. He's going to go and he's going to deposit money. That's the ruse. At least that's the excuse he needs to get in there to meet Malthus, a large sum of money, and try to kill him just try to seize an opportunity. But if he can't do that in the meantime, he's going to scope the place out, right, and figure out a more structured approach afterwards. So that's the whole deal.
It's always so frustrating how intelligent Morveer is in his methods.
Yeah. Yeah, no, he's smart in how he wants to approach this stuff. He's just annoying and dickish, but he is hilarious in my view. It's gonna be him, Day, and Friendly that go into a bank tomorrow. We know Friendly's loving that. He's gonna count his ass off, boy.
That's what he does.
That's what he does, exactly. And then, Shiver's asking, what about the rest of us? And he goes, well, Monza's pretty famous, so she has to say. And you are just too north. So, yeah. And so then Monza they all climb up the stairs, and Monza opens the door. They basically get out. They enter out onto the roof of the house. And then they can see the city. They have a pretty good view of the city. And right actually across from their house, if I'm not mistaken, Harrison, correct me, is a giant building. This thing looks like a temple in of itself, basically. And this is the Westport branch of the banking house of Valent and Balk, or Valent and Balk.
Yeah, cue the
Dun, dun, dun.
the big movie. Blum.
the Hans Zimmer. Brum.
Yeah, blum.
I find it quite interesting that this is one of the places that Benner had already set up before any of this happened, right?
Yeah.
We'll
see.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, you're right.
It's interesting that it was already there. It was already next to the bank.
Is it though? She didn't say Benna. I mean, this is not from Monza's perspective yet, and she didn't say anything about Benna, so we don't know here.
But it'd be there's no a little cutaway of her going and buying a fucking house or anything, is there?
No, I mean maybe in the following chapters, maybe because I do know we're in her perspective the chapter after this next one, but maybe. But I'm just saying this. It does make sense that her and Benna had procured this place in advance. Obviously, it doesn't make sense. It's really lucky it's right next door to Valen and Balk, right?
Yeah,
it might just be a coincidence.
Winkety. Go ahead, Harrison.
I just would say it's been made pretty clear so far that Monza and Benna had plans set and different ideas and how and setting, because you have to think about this too, is that the money they got from Herman's gold or whatever, is not the only money they had. I mean, what did they spend their money on? We know that maybe Benna probably went around and slept around a little bit. Maybe. Probably not, though. Let's be real. But, they didn't spend money on anything. They're not like most of the other mercenaries. We get to know Monza's character more. She didn't spend her money on any weird shit. Not really. The only thing that's it. Maybe they bought some nice clothes every now and then, and maybe bought a nice sword, but mercenaries made good money in Styria, as it's been made very clear. So they were fucking stacked, and they knew everything about Styria all the way around. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bought Westport as a safe house on purpose, because it's in Union territory in case something ever bad happened.
You mean you bought the safe house in Westport, right? They didn't buy the entire city of Westport.
No,
right?
I'm sorry. Yeah, they meant they bought a safe house in Westport.
Imagine they bought the entire city. That's our safe house, baby.
Oh my god,
that's mad bread. Holy shit.
I do really like too, as a side note, that whenever they get, when Shivers is looking at the city, I love the size that Joe depicts as how big these cities are. Westport is one of the biggest cities in the Circle of the World, and you can really tell the sea is a far off distant point, even though it's technically a coastal city. That's how big it is. And I really like that. Right. I like that detail a lot. And I like how you can see off in the distance. You can see the towers of normal structures. You can see temples. It's I think he does a really good job. We'll touch more on that in a minute, but I just like the way it's laid out. I think it's really cool.
No, you're right. Yeah, good job. Like that, Harrison. Yeah. George, do you want to say anything about that real quick or no?
No, I'm all good. I think it's all been said.
Okay. So yeah, and the chapter basically just ends by Shiver saying the place looks like a fortress, Friendly says like a prison, and Morvir says like a bank. And that, and that is the end of our chapter, folks. So, boys, how would you rate this chapter?
Harrison, do you want to go first?
Sure. I think I would rate this chapter a 5 out of 9. I think it's kind of it's very middle of the road. There's something that really stands out. It's kind of funny in the beginning. He does a lot of exposition and world building, which I love. But it's definitely just kind of setting up the next stage, which he does well. But it's a fairly average chapter overall. I think nothing of crazy note.
Yep, I agree.
No, I'd say I'd give it about a 4 as well. To be honest, like you said, it's funny at the beginning. I like that we get a little bit more. Because obviously Morvir and Dave have just been introduced, and really Friendly has as well. So it's nice that we get a little bit more character development. Well, I say character development, a little bit more of an introduction to them.
Yeah.
And how they think, which is nice, especially Friendly being an absolute fucking weirdo to everybody. He's just like, 7?
So, did you say 7? Yes, 7. Good lord.
And I do like how Shivers reacts to both of them. Like, he does hold his own against Morvir, even though he seems to be at a disadvantage at first, which I quite like. So yeah, I'd say about 4.
Yeah. And I give it a 4 for basically the same reasons. It's a transition chapter. We're with them. They're on this journey. They just got to Westport. Nothing really happened, but they get some humor, some comedy here. Other than that, not much. We see Shivers trying to make connections in the group, and him being a little disheartened about it. Like obviously Morvir and Day were just gunning him all fucking day long. And then Friendly was no real. He's not a good conversationalist. Let's just say.
Yeah, I will add one more note here that I almost forgot to say is that Shivers. A lot of people compare Shivers and Logan in the same category, especially in this book, because Shivers does a lot of the same kinds of things. But I think the largest difference, and I think that Joe does this well. And I do think that Joe kind of got them, I don't want to say mixed up, but he definitely connected them probably more than he realized. But his experience, they're both people trying to be better men, and they're both from the North, and both have these things. But like the way Logan goes about it is so much more tactful than the way Shivers goes about it. And I know that's on purpose. And I really appreciate that detail because obviously Logan is like very much more observant, listening. If somebody made fun of him, he'd just look at him and be like, "Oh, you think you're smart? Okay. That's cool." Well, Shivers is like offended, and he's clever about how he fixes it, but he's still, kind of a kid trying to handle these big situations, all these people who don't know him. And I think it's handled well, but I think people mix it up for just being like a Logan copy.
Yeah, because like at the time when Logan was, trying to be a better man, the first book at least, first and second book, he was, he was older. He was 35. But Shivers at this point, he's younger than Logan was at that time. Shivers is what, 25 still? He's like
younger than that, probably. Yeah,
probably.
Like
but I mean,
early 20s.
A couple years did pass, didn't they? Because was it in this chapter he just mentioned?
But assuming he was at the oldest 20 when they said, "Oh, you're all grown up now," then he's 23, 24, maybe at the oldest.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's close to 25. That's just me, but I mean, yeah, he's young. He's still young. Is my point.
Yeah.
So he's not gonna have that real world experience and know how to navigate people, how to be tactful, like you said, Harrison. So yeah, good on that. Good job. All right. So we'll move on to our next segment, which is best meme of the week. Georgie boy, that's yours. Take it away.
So we've got our old friend Tamal Ball to thank for this one. This is yeah. This is probably in response to the fact that there's a post maybe 2 or 3 times a week on the First Law subreddit, which is just, should I read best served cold, or should I skip straight ahead to Sage of Madness? Every single time people are like, what the fuck? So this is the scene from American Psycho, and it's like me 2 chapters into Best Served Cold, realizing that I can't continue as I completely forgot to post on the main sub, asking if I should read the standalones or not. Which is meta as fuck. I absolutely love this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
It's a good one.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Tamilball, for that one.
Thanks, Samuel Bohr. Are we surprised it's him again? Are we?
No.
No, I think this is his first one for Best Served Cold, but
Oh, really?
it's a fucking good one.
It is. Okay. All right. Love that for him. So we move on to our next chapter, which is our second chapter read through. It's also our final chapter read through. And this is The Safest Place in the World. This is a shorter chapter, but pretty cool to see. We see Morvir, Day, and Friendly have entered the banking hall of the Westport office of Valentin Balk. And it is a giant building, right? This thing is huge. And he notices that there are 60 clerks, all different kinds. The only thing that it matters here is money. And he notices that he doesn't see any money, right? Nothing's really like exchanging hands necessarily. Everything's with words or documents, trades, that kind of thing. Doesn't see the actual wealth. The wealth is behind the walls. And so basically Morvir knows that this is a setting that's intended to awe somebody. Just, wow, the building's so huge. There's so many people that work here. There's so many people that need to be here to make their deposits or, conduct some withdrawals, et cetera, et cetera. But Morvir goes, I am not a man to be intimidated. No, thank you. And then he just he skips past the line. He goes right up to the front of the queue and just snaps at a clerk and goes, I have an appointment with Malthus. I'm here to deposit a shitload of money. And the clerk goes, okay, just give me a minute, good sir. Give me a minute. And then he does the thing where he's like, time is money, baby. Hurry it up. And it's okay, Morvir, we get it. Relax. In the meantime, while the clerk goes to get Malthus, Morvir and Day are taking the opportunity to kind of observe the security features of the building. And he's impressed. This place is a fortress, as Day mentioned. 12 armed guards around the hall, and there have been another dozen outside the double doors. What else? Let's talk about some. Actually, let's not talk about that right now, because right after he notices like the armed guards, and then obviously when Day says that she's hungry, and he goes, "But you just ate." At that point, Malthus enters, and Malthus doesn't just necessarily enter; he's following a certain somebody. He's following a certain somebody with the air of deference. Malthus is, and this person that he's following is curly haired. Oh, and he notices that his eyes are a different color here.
Could it be?
It is Yaru Sulfur. George, go ahead.
What?
I know you like to do his accent.
Like, let me find the line. Sorry, cut this out.
It's never a moment of peace. Never a moment
It's
of peace.
never a moment of peace.
Hey, Captain.
Mouth.
But you should do it. Never a moment of peace. Hey, Malthus, you should do that.
Never a moment of peace. Hey, Malthus.
That's it. Excuse me. And Morvir can look at Malthus and know that that's him because Manza went into great detail describing how he looked, and he notices this Yoru Sulfur guy that Malthus calls Master Sulfur, and he tells him, "I hope you could inform our superiors that everything's under complete control." And Morvir notices that there's a bit of some panic in Malthus's voice. He goes, "Okay, what the fuck?" And then Yoru, I mean, I don't even want to do the accent unless you want to say it, George, if you want to do this little part. But he basically says, he finds that superiors are, they don't really need informing because they just always know. But if there's an issue, well, I guess you can figure out what's gonna happen to you. Otherwise, have a good day, and just leaves. And he smiles at Morveer. Morveer goes, okay. And then Malthus immediately pivots and goes, "Can I be of assistance?" to Morveer. And then he goes, Morveer does the thing again. He goes, "My name is Revrom, a merchant of Peranti." And
by far the best thing that happens in this moment, in this whole chapter, is the fact that Malthus goes, "Yes, I've heard of your house."
Oh my god! Forever the salesman there. He's just like, yep, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And he says, "A privilege to make your acquaintance." But
I mean, there is a chance that Morveer has used this like the alias before, because he does mention that he has.
Yeah, that's what I was implying. That the fact that he's used this Revrom Rostak so often
it's
that he has become Rostak Revrom, that he's used it so often that people do know that he's a famous merchant.
Say, somebody always dies when that wine merchant comes into town. What the fuck is up there? What's going on there? And here we can see how, honestly, I guess naturally paranoid or just inherently paranoid that Malthus is. Like, Morveer, he puts out his hand to shake Malthus's hand. Doesn't even try it. Malthus doesn't even budge. And so he's a cautious man. We know that. Morveer. I was going to say Revrom. Morveer
Might
goes,
as well.
Might as well. Morveer goes, okay, no big deal. I mean, he had a ring on his middle finger, which has a little spike, just dripping with scorpion venom. But no big deal. That would have killed him within an hour after their meeting or so. He introduces Day as his niece. And then he introduces Friendly as his bodyguard, calls him Master Charming. He's not a great conversationalist. And then he starts going to this whole thing, and then Malthus just goes, "Okay, so you've come here on business? Yeah? What?" And
I like how he does that. He goes through this whole spiel, and Malthus is just like, "I don't care. Like, I don't care why you're here or what you do. Just give me the money."
Yeah, exactly. And he tells Malthus, "I'm here for a sizable deposit." And then Malthus goes, "Okay, well, your people have to stay behind if you want to follow me." And then obviously we'll be happy to accept your deposit and prepare a receipt. And then Morveer goes, "But what about my niece?" And Malthus goes, "No, but your niece is gonna be perfectly comfortable here." And he goes, "All right, sure, great." And then he tells Friendly to give the clerk the strong box of all the money. And I guess it's actually full of money because they can't come in there with no money and say they're going to make a deposit, right? And then and so Morveer, he asks a pointed question just to, I guess, gain more information on the security of the building, right? He says, "Will my money be safe here?" And then this is where Malthus kind of goes into like a whole spiel, where I'll go into it briefly real quick, where he says that the bank's walls are at no point less than 12 feet in thickness, that there's only one entrance guarded by a dozen well-armed men during the day, sealed at night with 3 locks made by 3 different locksmiths. The keys kept by 3 separate employees. 2 parties of men constantly patrol the exterior of the bank until morning. Even then, the interior is kept under watch by a most sharp-eyed and competent guard. So they lock in a guard. They lock him in. So that's, it's no joke, the security. And then...
Yeah, I mean, 12-foot thick walls. Fuck me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Jesus.
Damn, boy.
And then... So then Morveer goes, maybe I can kill him in this method. He pulls out a handkerchief that is covered in mustard root, which I guess is a combination of agents that if he was to kind of put it over Morveer Malthus's face, it would kind of make him cough to a bloody death within minutes, right? But the clerk with the strong box is still there. There's no like real opportunity that Morveer can have to kill him, so he puts it back away. And he is impervious, or at least immune to these poisons, right? He's made sure that he's built up a natural immunity, or he's like kind of like put antidotes or immunizing agents.
Caution first, always.
Yep, caution first. But then he notes that they believe in skylights here. There's a ceiling of windows. So he's like, I like that. So that's good. But there is, Malthus says that there's no more secure. There's no more secure. There's no place more secure. Malthus. Hold on.
You're right there, Jeff.
Yeah, sorry. Malthus says that there's no place in the circle of the world that's more secure than this banking house. Even when Morveer says, "Oh, what about Alcus?" He goes, "Nope, not even that." So okay, and he looks up at Morveer, passes by a couple of paintings of a frowning, bald, heavyset man, and he knows it's probably Zoller or Bialoveld, and we know that
it's both.
It's Bias.
Yeah.
Which I love that little tie-in. I love that.
Yeah, and I like how Malthus just has a portrait of Bias just constantly watching it.
The same reason Glockta probably has one now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I love too that like you said, the world building, because this is something you would expect in a book without knowing the context. This is why, like, if somebody wants to jump into First Law, there are two ways of doing it. You could go the slow method. You could go the blade itself, or you could be like, all right, I'm in for a crazy experience and just go full on into Best or Cold. In my opinion, those are the only two places to really start the series.
Yeah.
But I think you definitely could start it here and then backtrack without spoiling too much. Shivers isn't really, he's not really that much of a spoiler, to be honest.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. And those are the two ways to do it. I did remember saying that some sicko started the books in way out of order on Reddit like a week ago or something. Started at 1, 2, and then did 7, 9, 4, 8.
What
2.
the fuck?
Yeah, it was weird. I was like, what? That's a person that needs to be in an asylum. I'm sorry.
What the fuck? Yeah, that's a little too far.
That's crazy. That's wild. If you listen to this podcast, I don't mean to insult you.
We love you, actually. We need the view.
we need the view. I'm just concerned. Are you okay?
Hey, how big are your balls? I'm just asking for academic purposes.
They need to be studied. Let that be done by Harrison, though. And so Malthus, Morveer notices that Malthus doesn't even touch the strong box of money. He's not going to count the money. That's the clerk's job. Continue. He's like very cautious. Again, this is like Morveer's observation. And then Malthus asks him, would you like some wine? And Morveer goes, oh, perfect opportunity. He goes, no, I don't touch the stuff, but please, don't let me stop you. And at that moment, he's like reaching into like a pocket to grab a vial of poison to slip it in his wine. But then Malthus goes, I avoid wine too. And he just drops, he's like, never mind. And then instead of the vial of poison, he just grabs a piece of paper that he had folded and grabbed it out and pretended to read it. So he's pretending to read this piece of paper while also just looking around the room, taking in all the security features and like maybe points of ingress and everything. And then Malthus doesn't show no emotion at the sum. It's like 5,212 scales or something like that. And then he goes, and then the clerk goes, he yells out the count, but it's one off of what Morveer said. He's 5,211, and then Malthus kind of just looks up. He goes, "You trying to pull something?"
I am so certain that this is Malthus doing his joke thing. He did it with Glockta like once or twice, but he's like, "I assure you, it is not safe." He's like being sarcastic. It's like, what?
This is about as funny as Malthus gets.
Yep. And Morveer passes it out. He blames Friendly. He goes, that man can't count for shit. And we know that man, all he does is count, which is hilarious. And so then Malthus writes out a receipt, gives it to the clerk, who gives it to Morveer. And then Morveer goes, okay, well, do I need to sign anything? Because he's ready to grab his pen, which is apparently also a ready-made blow fucking thing, blow gun. and then
Look, he's just gonna like whip it out. And go,
Got him. Got him.
And then
Right.
just run away.
It's just hilarious. and then Morveer, the Malthus goes, nah, you don't need to sign anything. Morveer goes, okay, never mind. And then he tries to shake his hand again, like he reaches out, and then Malthus doesn't even move it in. She's like, all right, have a good day. Likewise. And that's pretty much it. That's the end of the chapter. So Morveer got nowhere, but he did learn a lot about the security features of the Westport branch of the baking house of Valentin Balk. Boys, how would you rate that chapter?
I really like this. I really like the fact that he's like casing the bank, like coming up with all of these like little opportunities, and he's like, every single time he's like, just disappointed.
These absurd scenarios. You know what that reminds me of? Every one that he came up with, it reminded me of like, Medieval 2 Total War when you send your assassin to kill somebody. Like all the ways it could go,
Yeah.
all the ways it could go right, all the ways it could go wrong. It's just
But I love the fact that like we get like an inside view of like how Morveer does his business. I think it's actually really, really good. I'm going to give this one a 7, even though it's short.
Harrison.
I think I'm gonna give it 7 too. I was thinking the same exact thing. I think it's done really well with how Morveer, like his brain operates. It gives us really good insight. And honestly, it's really entertaining. It's really well paced. We get an idea of the bank. We get some Easter eggs. It's a fun chapter because Revam Rostak and all that. It's pretty.
Revam.
It's Rostak Revam. I'm sorry. Oh, like it matters. Like it matters, Jeff. It's done really well, and so I think a 7 is a good score for it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I like it. It is really short, but I do like it. I'll give it a 6 and a knuckle. I'll give it 2 more than the previous chapter. But yeah, I mean, like you guys said, there's world building. There's little Easter eggs here, with Sulfur and Bialoveld and Zoller, which we know who that be. And then just like these, these like, okay, mustard root and handkerchief. Nope, that can't work. All right, polar bear fang venom blowgun. What? No, it just won't work either. And like you said, George, like what was he gonna do with that blowgun? Just go on both of them and run away? It just doesn't make sense.
And he's like thinking about like gonna like get the cloth and like smother him in the corridor.
Yeah, he's gonna chloroform fucking Malthus.
It makes me think that Morveer, despite being very clever, is also extremely fucking lucky if any of these things have worked for him in the past.
Most definitely.
Yeah. But I guess he's right in the idea is like he's gonna look for opportunities, get so okay, so he's maybe in his mind he's thinking, okay, I'm gonna walk down this hallway of Malthus. Maybe there's an opportunity where there's a secluded area of the hallway where I can do this. So that makes sense. He gets ready, then realizes no opportunity. I get it. It makes sense. It's just in his mind, it's so fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, all right. So that's their second and final chapter read through. The safest place in the world, and I feel like that's foreshadowing there. But we'll move on to our final segment since we don't have a community interaction segment this week. This is our character spot, and we're gonna throw it back to something we did like about once or twice before. We are going to actually highlight, boys. What are we gonna highlight?
We've done it before, and we're gonna keep doing it because I think it's a unique way to look at some of these character spots. Mostly because we don't have certain character spots sometimes, so what choice do we have? But that is the city of Westport itself. Kind of mentioned it before. It's like a whole melting pot of different cultures, of the 3 main cultures that we're like aware of that exist inside of the Circle of the World, which is, Tanta itself, the Union, and Styria. And of course, in each of those things, there's their own culture and everything. And you can even see Northmen and stuff. We didn't really highlight it, but there are a ton of exotic animals and stuff. The trade is crazy here. You can trade anything you want. Who the fuck cares?
You can trade people.
Yeah, fuck yeah. The big part of the whole way Westport functions is the fact that it's almost like a it's a city where you can do whatever you want, and it also means you can be whoever you want. It's like I would say it's probably one of the most I know this is ironic, and I might maybe somebody will be offended, but I think you know what I mean. It's the most free city possibly out there inside of the Circle of the World because it's got complete diplomatic immunity. Every side wants to have it, and every side doesn't want to make them mad. which is why they've even pointed out, as a reminder, Westport is the reason why the Union won the first Gurkish War that we've seen in the books. It's because of that.
I did want to point that out. They're talking about the first Gurkish War or the one that just occurred?
They're talking about the first Gurkish War.
Okay.
And
Yeah, because
honestly,
at the point of Blade itself, like Westport's already part of the Union, whereas I think in the First War is when they kind of like acquired it, right?
yes. And I would say in terms of the world, I mean, they definitely contributed. Westport brings in a lot of money. The aldermen of Westport, which is the ruling body, they were the people who are responsible for bringing a ton of people in, and also they're stuck right almost not. Ash was technically the center of the circle of the world, but culturally, Westport is the center of the circle of the world. Everybody comes to Westport. It's a huge city. And I just really like the vibe that it gives off. It has like this vibe of like, it's almost like a big old like Calcutta, like an India city, but at the same time as being like a crossroad city. It's a massive city with so many different cultures and stuff. And it's difficult to describe without Joe describing it, but I think he does a really good job of giving us a picture.
No, for sure, absolutely. Yeah, I was looking at the segment where it said it's part of the Union too, since the aldermen finally had to pick a side and bought the High King his victory over the Gurkish. So it doesn't specify. I imagine it would be the first Gurkish War because
it was the first one because they talk about that in the blade itself.
Okay, yeah, and the second one, yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I love the fact that that bit where they're like seeing all the preachers on the side of the road, and they're like there's like just loads of them, and they're all like preaching different things. That's got to be a call out to the Monty Python Life of Brian, right?
I think so.
That's definitely a call out. I think that's absolutely hilarious. I love the fact that like there's just all this crazy mad shit. Like I said, like the preachers, like Shiva sees like slavery for the first time, and he's just utterly shocked by it. There's a fucking giraffe, just like walking around, apparently. It's just such an interesting place, and compared to every other place that we've been to in the circle of the world so far, I mean, I'd say Adua and Carlian are the only other cities really, and Alcus, but
Right. Well, Alcus,
it's dead.
Yeah. And
but like they seem a lot more.
Don't forget Dagosca.
And Dagosca as well, absolutely. But they're all very like monolithic, so there's just like the one culture, and that's it.
Yeah.
Not to say that that's a bad thing, but like to see like all of this like mishmash together is it's very interesting.
Yeah.
I only wish we got to see more of it, or maybe we will later.
Maybe. Harrison, I want to ask you. Monta had mentioned that 100 years ago, when the Gurkish conquered Dawa, that a lot of Southerners, came over there. So Dawa, any specific information on where that place is? Relative to other countries in the south.
If we pull up a map, it's on the coast. It's obviously, I think that was probably when whoever originally made that first map. I can't even remember now. It's been a while since I looked it up, but somebody who originally made the map, the very first one that Joe said, yeah, that's accurate, is he probably because of this statement put Dawa on the coast, like on the far like eastern coast of Kanta, which I mean it would kind of have to be on the coast for them to like, okay, we're gonna run away across the sea, but they ended up going to Westport. It must have been a sizable amount because there's a large Kantic population inside of Westport, and the aldermen though are mostly, a lot of them are Styrian. So, and there's a ton of temples and stuff like that. I would say a majority of the big cultural peoples are Kantic. So, it just makes me so curious too. Like we get a little bit of touch and go. I don't think it's spoilers, but Shev and Davra are here as well. And Shev is definitely a multicultural woman, so we'll touch base with her later. But
I completely forgot about Shev and Javra.
Same.
So,
yeah. The same.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. But yeah, Shev is from Westport, and you could definitely tell she's definitely got various ideas of a culture, and I can imagine, with how Westport function, it is similar to the closest relation I have, is, of course, as an American, is New York, of course, but
Yeah, of course. I got you. Okay. I don't know why I thought Dagaska was in Dawa, like Dawa the country, Dagaska the city, but I guess I'm wrong.
Yeah, Dagaska is its own free independent city-state, yeah.
City-state, too. Oh, interesting. Okay. All righty. Anything else you want to add to?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
No, I'm all good.
All right, sounds good. So, folks, that's pretty much it. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you all know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support really does mean a lot.
Join us next week as we cover Evil Friends, 2 Twos, and Plans and Accident.
And make sure you follow us on our social media. We're on Instagram and we post on Reddit. And we have a website. It's circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening.
You're the fucking scientist. You work it out.